Welcome back, everybody. This is the end of the Great Hunt, or something like that. We're back to talk about Wheel of Time, especially, well, the end of the Great Hunt. Book 2 of this terrible mess so far by Robert Jordan. And we're going to finish up with chapters 38 all the way to chapter 50. And there's a lot going on here. I'll try to make it quick, and then I'll go and talk about like general thoughts on this book, maybe a little. We'll see how far I can progress with this. So yeah, and then we'll figure out what I'll do tomorrow. Maybe I'll talk about, I don't know, God's War by Cameron Hurley, which is what I'm going to read as a comfort read before I drive myself to do The Dragon Reborn on Monday, and or maybe some Discworld. The world is my bloody oyster. My flaming bloody oyster, Mr. Uno of Faldara. Anyway, let's get started. Cheers. You have no idea how good that is right now. I've been part of like online conferences all morning talking about minority representation, and then I went and did a workout, and I finally get to sit down and vent all my rage and frustration with a completely irrelevant piece of fiction. I feel good now. Anyway, let's get this started. Plot-wise, what happens? Four young girls, youngish, girlish people, do something dumb and ride all the way to save poor old Randall Thor, Dragon Reborn, and all around, I have no idea, guy, get trapped, and then we get like a big battle at the end in Toman Head, and, well, the dragon declares himself and gets one girl, and there we are, I guess. That's like very much what happens. In between, we get a bit of like weird girl bondage, pseudo bondage shit going down, which I guess we need to talk about at some point when we get a bit more of that stuff. We will see. That's sort of what we need to talk about today. And then there's obviously stuff that went wrong, stuff that was actually done fairly decently, even though I don't think the overall idea was a good one, and, you know, stuff like that. So let's dive into it, shall we? Here we go. So yes, we start out with a dumb conversation between Min, Elaine, Nynaeve, and what's her name? Egwene. Right. So the four girls are doing magic school stuff, which is practicing and talking and mooning over Randall Thor, except for Nynaeve, who's obviously mooning over Lan. So what do we learn from this? Obviously that young female-identifying people meeting in a room have nothing else to talk about but boys, and that's if we're considering that all of those are somewhere between the ages of 17 and 21, I guess. 22 at this point, possibly. Sort of, somehow like that. I am obviously not an expert on that, but neither is Robert Jordan, and that's sort of my point there. It's as cliched as it gets. It's the worst kind of cliche that you find in any kind of teenage high school comedy, whatever. It's like, if at this point, I mean, I have like 5% female viewers, which is sad enough. Like, you 5%, is this really what would happen, or what happened at that time? Are boys that you kind of tend to think of as dumb idiots are exactly the only topic you talk about in marriage? I doubt it. Anyway, let me know in the comments if I'm completely wrong here, because I'm willing to be educated. Maybe Bobby J did actually do some extensive research or asked his editor. I don't know. I just found it a bit like very, very dumb, but maybe I'm all off here. However, at that point, everyone's favorite evil person, Leandrin, walks in, sends out two of the girls, and figures that she can take Nynaeve and Egwene to run off with her to save poor Rand. And obviously the other girls decide to come with them, because why the fuck not? And also Leandrin is obviously not suspicious at all, ever. But they do it anyway, because they're kind of dumb. Like, all of them. They're like, poor boy is in need of doing something, so we'd better, go and do the dumb thing. So they actually all run off to save Rand, go with Leandrin, who is acting very suspiciously indeed all the fucking time. We get like a hint that obviously it saves the other two's lives, because she has probably planned something to get rid of those two, by which I mean Min and Elaine, but who knows. Anyway, what do? They run off into the ways again. Yes, that's right. Wheel of Time subway is, the Wheel of Time metro is open again for business, and they ride off. Which obviously makes this ending, like the last part of this book, very much a parallel to Eye of the World, where we have a sort of semi-coherent story going on, until shortly before the end, when suddenly an Aes Sedai says, "Oh, right, you group of characters that have been here for a reason should totally go somewhere else. So let's walk through these absolutely safe and, these absolutely dangerous ways, which you should never use. Follow me. It's gonna be great." And they do that again, because obviously we need to have everyone back again. We need to have the entire team back there in one place at the end of the book, because apparently we can't have, we can't split the group and have different arcs and not have them all come back to the grand finale at the end. That's apparently not possible yet. Well, there we go. They run through there, and obviously Leandrin then betrays the girls all to these Seanchan, who want to leash up all them tasty Aes Sedai to turn them into their pet slaves. Yeah, I don't know. It's sort of what happens. So basically now we officially know that Leandrin is Black Aja, which, comes as a huge shock, and people like Egwene and Nim, I want to say Nim because I kind of want to link her to Nimue, or Nimue, or whatever you want to pronounce her in Arthurian legend, but that's obviously not the case. So Min. Like, all four of them are like, you have those two girls, ladies, Leandrin and the High Commandress or whatever of the Seanchan, talk about their common master. And you have four young girls, young women, sitting there like, who could they possibly mean? Those women that have just betrayed us or taken us as slaves, when they have a common master in a world that has a clear black and white or like good and evil setup with a dark lord. Are they talking about the creator? Possibly? Who knows? No, of course not. Anyway, we need to have some confusion here. We need to have willfully stupid characters, because otherwise a lot of these problems would not arise in the first place. So yeah, anyway, Nynaeve and Elaine run off and kind of stay free, and at the same time Elaine and Min get captured. Egwene gets turned into a Damani, which is a slave, and yeah, there we go. And then the other two, Nynaeve and what's her name, Elaine, decide to follow them to Volmar, the place where the showdown will happen, and free her. Which I like that, because what happens. We have actually in this specific place a situation where competent women actually manage to help each other and not rely on good boy Rand and his gang, which is pretty cool. I approve of that. So good on you, Bobby J. That one's really good. I like that. As I said, I'm not trying to call him out for shit that is not actually egregious. We'll see how well all of that works. There's obviously still a male savior, but he also seems to fail, which is our Sweetwater pirate and all-around useless character, what's his name? Captain Doman? something like that. You know, the Sweetwater Pirate with the dumb accent, that guy, who is still hanging around there. Also, Pat and Vane, who has been upgraded to Super Saiyajin, I guess, at this point. Who knows? We'll talk about that in a bit. At the same time, the boys are still hanging around in this area, which is with their buddy Ingtar and the Shinarans to find the horn. Because they, at the end of what we spoke about yesterday, moved through the Wheel of Time teleport with all the possibilities. Which, I repeat this, that was an actually really cool scene. So yeah, and now they're obviously figuring out how to go there, and it's a bit boring, and all of that like discussion, like, should we go to Volmar immediately, or should we not? And it serves no purpose. There's an entire chapter called, what's it called? Disagreement? Something like that? Discord? No, not Discord. Discord was an earlier one. Discord was the one with Tom Maryland, which is also sort of like completely unnecessary. At this point, at least. But the disagreement chapter is, you could drop the entire chapter. Nothing happens there. They ride around. They're like, oh, should we go directly to Volmar or shouldn't we? But we end up in Volmar anyway, so why the fuck even bother? It's not like that. There's nothing happens in that chapter. We could just like drop the entire thing. There's nothing to it because, well, also the Children of the Light show up. The White Cloaks show up, and they're like, ooh, maybe that brawny dude over there was maybe Perrin of the Two Rivers, because apparently every like curly-haired bull of a dude is immediately someone you saw at the other end of the world. Well, not the other end, but like half across the world. However, you know, they're fanatics. Who knows how fanatic minds work? I don't really want to know. But apart from that, and he doesn't do anything. He doesn't do shit with that either. I mean, maybe in the far, far future, he will use all of this to explain why the Children of the Light are still hunting Perrin. Possibly. Maybe. Who knows? If not, that entire chapter could have been dropped, and you could have still made that recognition bit later on. Yeah. Anyway. That's, I guess, what you get from marrying your editor. They will not actually, you know, punish you for putting in like 50 pages that are unnecessary. I guess. Who knows? As I said, that chapter is completely unnecessary. That entire, like, having them fuck around there for nothing to just, like, get them into the place at the same time as the girls is just ridiculous. It's like, both of those use magic traveling. You could just, like, change all of that if you want and have people ride there or whatever, if you need to actually fulfill an internal timetable, which I don't think Robert Jordan has, because everything else is very much about narrative convenience. So once again, not exactly what I would call well planned and thought out or intrinsically, you know, internally consistent. No, it's not. All right, so let's talk about the final things that are important, and then we'll do like a bit of a wrap-up. First of all, the Shan-Chan. Now, I will come back to them, I guess, in the future, if we ever get more Shan-Chan stuff, maybe even stuff happening in their part of the country. I have no idea. We've definitely reached the point that I have not read before. This is sort of like as far as I've ever come in Wheel of Time. And I have no idea what will happen in the future. However, we need to talk about the Shan-Chan right now and the weird pseudo-bondage whatever shit going on there with the Damani and Suldan. Whatever. And that is, we found another stereotype going on here, because I mean this world is full of terrible stereotypes. We've spoken about the anti-Semite stereotypes around Pat and Vane. We spoke about the anti-Sigonist stereotypes of the Tinkers, the Tuathon. Now let's talk about the Shan-Chan and Orientalism for a bit, right? So I don't know how much you know about Orientalism, and once again, I'm not blaming Robert Jordan for doing this on purpose, because he wrote this in 1990, and sadly, Orientalism has, or the criticism of Orientalism has still not actually pervaded mainstream culture. So I'm not blaming Robert Jordan for not knowing about this. He, however, still goes in for a lot of that stuff. What do I mean? We have a lot of aspects there. We have effeminacy when it comes to men. We have decadence, we have a focus on sexuality, very overt sexuality, especially when it comes to women, and a lot of other aspects in Orientalism that we basically see all the way back to how the Roman historians talked about the Persian, basically. I mean, that's sort of where you can see the whole thing start. The Persians, the Persians, obviously ridiculous, but the Persians in Herodotus are still fairly good warriors and shit. Not so in 300, but that's a different story, because don't trust Frank Miller, he knows shit. Anyway, with Roman historians writing about the different Persian dynasties, they more or less, without any big success, tried to fight over there. We find those cliches of how unmanly, decadent, and whatnot those people in the East are. And we kind of can see that go all the way through wherever we go in history, in historiography, in history, in media depictions, all the way until fairly recently. A big one that you can find is the depiction of the Drow in Dungeons and Dragons and Forgotten Realms in particular. That stuff ridiculously, it's misogynist as well, but it's also fairly Orientalist in a lot of ways. That's not a good thing. So what do we have here? We have wanton cruelty. We have the depiction of that High Lord, I already forgot his name, who is apparently also a sword master, but not too much of a sword master, because not that fully trained Rand al'Thor can actually kill him. But he's, with his very, very long fingernails, and the way he's always portrayed is very much as this effete, decadent dude. Also, he's obviously under the heel of the oppressing female, which, once again, is a bit of a theme in this series in general. Plus, we have the sexual components in the whole leashing of the Domani, which, I don't know. I mean, it's not as brutal as it is in the Sword of Truth stuff, where we have the more in-your-face hardcore version of this, but the whole one woman leashing another one, treating her like a pet. Yeah, there's a kink there, and I'm not kink shaming here. I'm just saying it's once again executed in this very Robert Jordan repressed way, and it fits into that whole idea of Orientalist cliches, because we have that short comments on the Empress's court over wherever they are, where they are even more decadent and have these ridiculous games where one Domani is linked to a nobleman, and then maybe both die, maybe they don't, who knows. Yeah, they can waste these kind of people because she's living in Oriental decadence. Also, I think they're technically coming from the East, but I'm not quite sure with the map here, so I might be wrong on that one. So yeah, we find these cliches in here, and I guess we as I said, I'm not blaming Robert Jordan. We'll definitely look more at it when we get more into later books and they show up again, which I assume they will. But right now, that depiction is very, very, unfortunate, I would say. It has not aged well, I would say. Lots of other things that I would say here. Plus, it obviously also doesn't make any fucking sense whatsoever, but I have given up on ever finding any actual reasonable world building and cultures that actually are explained or are coherent. I don't think that will happen in this book. I am open to being surprised here, though. I'm still hoping, holding out hope for Robert Jordan to actually do something right, because, as I said, there's good ideas in here sometimes, from time to time. So anyway, the girls are there. Egwene gets the sub treatment there, and the others are trying to save her from it. And that part I kind of like. I don't like the whole leashing whatever stuff kind of thing going on. That, I don't know, it just feels wrong. It's if I want to read that kind of book, I'd rather read it written by someone who actually is, not holding back. That's what I'm trying to say. But this feels like Robert Jordan is blushing while writing it, and maybe ashamedly giggling into his armpit, if you see what I mean. Also, Pat and Vane is apparently still in the city, but we don't meet him anymore. I mean, someone sees him walk past and doesn't recognize him, but he doesn't play a huge role after delivering the horn and the dagger to that effete swordmaster from over the seas. And now we come to that weird ending. So they follow, the boys follow with their sniffer and figure out that the guy is, Pat and Vane is in Volmar. So they ride forth, 5 shall ride forth. Those are obviously our terrible triumvirate, Rand, Matt, and Perrin, plus the sniffer, Urine. I will just keep on calling the guy Urine because I can't remember his name. And Ingtar, who, and we'll talk about Ingtar in a second, because Ingtar is a fascinating character study, or like a fascinating study in like what Robert Jordan gets right and what Robert Jordan gets wrong, and where an actual like editor would probably help. And I'm just making all these comments in the hope that a critical dragon will at some point come and tell me how wrong I am. That's just what I'm trying to do with this. I'll get to it in a second, however. So what do I mean? So they find out that they can't just like run their entire army into Volmar because, there's a Shan-Chan in there and whatnot. So those 5 sneak in dressed as shepherds and, simple country folk. And then they follow the sniffer to the house where the effete swordmaster lives. Turath? I want to call him Turok, but he's not a dinosaur hunter, so I don't think that's what's going on there. But so they follow, they see that, they see the Groms outside. Rand is confused by Groms being there because he thinks they're only in a different world, but apparently they're not. They decide to go in and steal the horn and the dagger. They run around the backyard, jump, over the fence, kill the guard in the... It's your basic role-playing game style heist, if done well. So they jump in, kill the guard, rush into the house, find the horn and the dagger, and are about to leave when our swordmaster shows up, sees Rand, starts a duel with him, while at the same time Matt slashes someone with a dagger, and we actually find out that the dagger is really fucking dangerous because it's a magic dagger that, if you use it, will burn up people or kill them terribly. So yeah, there's that. With the evil dagger from Shadar Logoth. The others run away, and Matt faces the Swordmaster, and they have themselves a bit of a sword fight, which Rand at the end obviously wins because he has the superpower of the Void. Which is, I guess, what Robert Jordan also has, because looking at his books, they're basically a void of sense, taste, and style, but he still wins commercially with it, so good on you. There. They fight. Robert, our buddy Rand kills the Swordmaster. As soon as he's dead, his servants ritually kill themselves because that's another one of those aspects of the Orientalist cliches and whatnot. So yeah, and then Rand looks out of the window, sees Egwene on a leash on the other side, and oh, I gotta help her, and then actually never manages to do that, which. Once again, this ending is messy and doesn't make a lot of sense. So they, leave the house with the horn and the dagger right out of the town. Now, when they're on their way out of the town, they're like, whoa! Wait, we're going to go back. We're going to deliver the horn to the Aes Sedai, because why not? Then we're going to go back inside and help the girl, which we definitely need to do. And there's obviously no reason to not do that immediately. So, well... Oh, right, I forgot Ingtar there, but because they kind of have to flee from people, and Ingtar does his famous his famous last stand after revealing that he has been a dark friend all alone. And he'll get redemption through, his last stand. And we'll talk about Ingtar in a second, and to just, point out the ridiculousness of the overall thing, and then we're talking about Ingtar. So they run out. Ingtar's already dead. They're like, we gotta go back with the horn. And they're like, oh, wait, we don't do that. We're already out of the town. We're going back inside. But we can't, because now there's a huge battle with the Children of the Light and the Shanchan. So Matt does the only thing he's good at. He blows the horn. What did you think? And suddenly all those dead or undead heroes show up. Arthur Hawkwind and all kinds of other people. And they're like, yo, you called us Luce Ferren, Kinslayer. And we get a bit of the idea that, yes, this is sort of like, it can summon those guys, and they're like this like Hall of Fame kind of gang that you can always call, and they're always the same in every age, just slight iterations, which is sort of, I guess, part of that whole Wheel of Time concept that we don't get explained, but kind of figure out over time, and I don't mind that idea. So that one's pretty cool. And then that gang of undead heroes goes and slaughters everyone in town, while, Rand pulls out the dragon banner because he has to, because otherwise those guys will not follow. Perrin is like, all right, I'll build your standard bearer. They all run into town, do the deeds, and Rand has to face everyone's favorite dude, Baalzamon. The Shadow, the Dark Lord, whatever his name. That dude. Old Fire Eyes, and they have themselves a bit of a fight. It's the same dumb dialogues like, you can't win, Luce Ferren is like, I'm not Luce Ferren, motherfucker, I'm Rand. And they, but you can still not win, and even if you die, I win. And yeah, they have that whole fight. And then at the end, Rand takes a big hit with a stick in order to get an opening to actually go and kill, or put his sword home in Baalzamon to end that fight. And the overall idea of having their duel mirror the fight between the Shanchan and Arthur Hawkwind and his heroes on the other side is not a bad idea. It's a bit cheesy to have the whole thing then literally happen, visible all over the sky. It's like, oh, fuck's sake. Does it have to be that bad? I mean, I'm not expecting it to be, to be done in the same gracious way as, say, by Stephen Erickson in Fall of Light, where we have that board game thing going on with a big battle. But at least, does it have to be that cheesy again? But I mean, we've already talked about the fact that everything in here is very much on the nose, and this will not change. Anyway, so they have that whole thing. We get a bit callback to the you gotta know when to sheathe the sword and risk being killed because it's better to be killed than no, that whole thing. It works out. There's a happy end. Everyone survives except Ingtar, who dies a hero's death, and then Min goes and finds an almost dead Rand, drags him into a bed and crawls into bed with him, because obviously that's what will happen. Yeah, still no genitals though. There's still an absolute lack of genitals in this book. However, Egwene comes in, sees them, takes the wrong conclusion, or maybe the right conclusion. We don't really know. I mean, we kind of know. And yeah. Then we get our epilogue, which is when Min is with the Dragon Reborn and Moraine, because for some absolutely unfathomable reason, Moiraine, Sedai, and Lan are also in fucking Tome and fucking Head, because everyone has to. It is so dumb. Because it's never explained, right? Anyway, and they walk back, and Rand comes to the camp, and everyone is swearing fealty to him, even Uno, and what the other guy, Massima, the guy who hates him for looking like an Aiel man. And, well, then they, move on as the dragon and his gang, and other stuff will happen in other, places all over the world where people will declare for the dragon, and, Armageddon, which is called Tarmageddon or something, which sounds very much like what kills the dinosaurs when they wander into a swamp. But, I don't really want to know. Will happen, and shit will really get intense in the next book, which we'll talk about on Monday. Now let's pick out a bit of things. Ingtar, because Ingtar is interesting. So when there's a desperate situation and there's all these soldiers coming from both sides and they're in this small alley and Ingtar is like, oh, I can do my glorious last stand, and then he tells Rand that he's been a dark friend and yes, and let in the archer, the lone gunman who killed that dude and was maybe aiming for Rand or maybe for the Amerlin's seat at the beginning of the book, which didn't make any sense back then and still doesn't make any sense. So yeah, and then he goes to his redemption, which is through killing a lot of people. And there's like two things in there. First of all, it doesn't make any fucking sense for him to be a dark friend. I mean, yes, it can work, and you can have that whole, like, he sees his terrible, like, options of his, like, actions when they're traveling through the stone, and that's maybe an idea. We also can see, and this is clever, like, if you look back, there is that scene in the beginning when the Trollocs attack and the Murdroll attacks, and Rand is about to face the Murdroll, and Ingtar runs in and is like, I'll do it, you have no experience with this shit, and Rand goes on to find Egwene, I guess. And then, Ingtar later comes back and is like, yeah, he didn't kill the guy because he ran away. And it is implied, or at least I read it that way, that is exactly when the Murdroll talks to Ingtar and is like, you gotta let in my assassin, dude. Once again, this is not clear. This is just me reading that into it. But if that is the case, that is remarkably subtle and well done for Robert Jordan. Because you don't suspect it to be that at the beginning, but when you look back, it makes kind of sense for it to be that way. So that one, really good. I like that. That's really clever. The problem, however, is that there is a much easier way to have the whole thing go. Ignore the dumb assassin, which doesn't play any other role than to make sure that you know that there's still someone who let the guy in, although he could have been like someone who came in with the rest of the gang and just hid in the castle. That's another option, if you need that arrow there, which you don't. And you could do the whole thing that you see with Ingtar and make Ingtar a bit more of a Boromir, which he basically is anyway at the end there, with the speech he gives about like how he wants Shynara to stand and whatnot. He's basically Boromir in there. And the thing is that all over this book, from like the further the plot works on, the more fanatical Ingtar gets about finding the horn and the glory that the horn will give him. And it's a really cool idea because we learn in the prophecy, right, that horn cannot be used by someone who seeks it for his glory. Which works because Matt doesn't even want the fucking horn when he blows the horn, so that's why it works. But Ingtar is falling more and more under the spell of the horn and the glory of the horn and whatnot throughout the book. And he mentions that fucking glory every single fucking time, and at the same time we have Lanfear, who gets revealed as Lanfear at the end finally, right? Also trying to make Rand go and do it for the glory, to basically make it impossible for him to use the horn, which also is kind of wasted because at the end of the day he doesn't even use the fucking horn, it's Matt who does. So we set up that whole glory shit all the time. And then at the end, Ingtar just is a dark friend for whatever reason. That's just a wasted opportunity there. Like, it just like, you set up all this stuff and then it just like goes nowhere. And once again, like, having that like whole idea is like, yeah, this is this powerful thing, and we can call all the dead heroes from the ages and they can help us to defend Shannara. It would make a lot of sense. It kind of feels very Boromir-like, and we can probably commend Robert Jordan for, not going the full-on Tolkien route again, and I'm willing to give him that. But then maybe pick something that makes more sense, which this just doesn't. I mean, yeah, okay, so you've been an asshole, so killing a bunch of people will actually make you a good guy again. Fine. That's something that we've seen in movies before. I'm okay with that. It doesn't bear any, like, moral examination, but this is fantasy, and not a good one at that. So yeah, I just feel this whole thing shows so well what is my general problem with these books so far. It's like Robert Jordan does have ideas. He sometimes even has a bit of talent, and he can do stuff well if he wants to, and if he focuses on it and whatnot. But on the other hand, like, he never really fully manages to do that or like execute his ideas. The ideas are good, and he sets up stuff, and then he just like walks all over it because suddenly he kind of forgets or just ignores the good opportunities in a way. And that's something that we can see in this specific situation there as well. I mean, the other part is, once again, that whole ending is, once again, there's a good idea there. Have like that like fight, the small fight between the duel between the Dragon Reborn and the Dark Lord Baalzamon. Have that mirror the larger battle. That's a good idea. There's even sort of almost symbolism in there and shit, right? That's great. But what does he do? He fucking broadcasts their duel on the fucking sky for everyone to fucking see, to ram it fucking home with a mallet. It's like, why? Why the fuck? Why? It doesn't make any sense. And he just, I don't know. See, that's once again the situation. It's so crude in these aspects, and it could have been handled so much easier. It's like, yeah, have those two guys duel, because we don't know about the whole it was broadcast all over the sky situation at all. You can basically ignore that entire final chapter. That whole like Moraine showing up. We don't know about Moraine, right? We don't know about Moraine, and she doesn't have to be there at all. The other one, what's her name? Varen. Yeah, Varen is enough Aes Sedai for that one moment. I'm almost glad Tom Merlin didn't also show up in Tome and Head at this point. But apart from that, like, everyone just has to be there for it to feel whatever. I don't know. Moraine doesn't have to be there. Having those two things go down at the same time, which is Egwene, Min, have the girl adventure and the boy adventure. Yeah. But why do they have to be in the same place? Just so Rand can totally not get laid because he's passed out? Is that all of it? I mean, having... Yeah, it just doesn't make any sense. You can go with like, oh, they're Ta'Veren, and we are going to talk about Ta'Veren more in the future, trust me, because Ta'Veren sucks ass. However, my point is, once again here, both like plot lines in a way are okay. Yes, the weird bondage like leash shit doesn't have to be there, but the idea of like the girls getting into trouble and actually solving their own problems without the guys is a good idea. I appreciate that. That's really good. But it doesn't have to take place in the same town at the same time as what Rand is doing. Because you can have both like separate, different locations, and they're like moving those people around the entire globe through magic ways just so they are in the same town and Rand can talk about maybe he has to save Egwene and then not actually doing it. It feels cumbersome and unnecessary without actually getting anything new done, and that's I guess the problem that I have with it. Apart from just the sheer stupidity of Rand and whatnot and Baalzamon fighting it out all over the skies. I don't know. Him calling, like, being called the Dragon Reborn by Arthur Horkwind, come back from the grave, should be enough to make clear that he is the Dragon Reborn and has declared himself. That would be enough, I guess, in a more, stylish way. But Robert Jordan will never go for subtle if he can just hammer it home, I guess. And that's sort of my issues there. So, let's have a look. This is book 2. I think I don't like it more than I did Eye of the World. I'm not sure if I like it worse. I think they are different books. Pacing-wise, I had a lot of issues with Eye of the World, but overall, as a story, the arcs were okay. It's like, it's sort of Lord of the Rings, but the whole thing in like in one story. They run off, they're followed by evil guys, they go to some place, they confront the evil lord, and it's done. That kind of works. Yes, there's all kinds of issues there. There's that ridiculous Moria situation in Shadar Logoth, because you have to hit all those plot points. there's all of that stuff going down, but it kind of works. And this one felt way more disjointed in a lot of ways. There's stuff going down that doesn't make any particular sense. Having that whole like White Cloak arc doesn't make any sense. Yeah, they're there. And then you have that final battle there. Yeah, okay. But all of those, apparently the Inquisition is even worse than just the fascists, I guess. They're maybe working together with the Dark Lord, I guess. Yeah, but why? I hope this will, bear fruit in the next book. I really, really hope, because so far it does not. And that whole bit could have been cut out. Use it somewhere else. Use it later. It does not need to be there. Just like that dumb chapter about like them walking around the countryside and not getting anything done. The parallel will, of course, they have to go back through the ways to go somewhere where they don't need to go. And that parallel at the end just felt a bit tacked on. It's like, yeah, oh shit, I need to actually get some sort of climax there. Let's just like pull shit out of my ass and do that. Well, there we go. That's what he did. So this book showed me some more ideas that I really like. The idea of parallel universes, choices, this being about choices that we make and actually showing the alternative of the choices that we don't make and stuff. I like those aspects of it. Those are really cool. Some of the weird, almost post-apocalyptic, this stuff from like older ages shit being found. Those are really cool ideas, but then at the same time, Robert Jordan manages to mess up even worse when he goes. That's sort of my feeling with this book, right? Robert Jordan comes and has all these great ideas, like, I don't have to copy Lord of the Rings anymore. I can finally write my own book, do all the great and cool things that I have in my mind. And then he starts and sets out with all those ideas. And then he drops the ball on almost all of them and messes up because he's not yet confident enough a writer to actually pull through or, know what I mean? And that's, I guess, what annoys me with this book. It just felt disjointed. The stakes weren't really there. The stakes weren't really there for me. The whole narrative sort of felt disjointed, and all those really good ideas and good starting points kind of went nowhere. Add to that the really awkward sexuality component that wasn't really there in the first book but feels unnecessary here as well. I mean, it kind of stands out because you don't have it in Eye of the World. Suddenly it's here and it just feels wrong and awkward. I don't know. I really hope the Dragon Reborn will take this to some other places and maybe Robert Jordan finally hits his stride. But my enthusiasm is not exactly high at this point. Anyway, that's it for today and talking about The Great Hunt. If someone wants to discuss this stuff with me in a collaboration, please feel free to contact me and we can work this out. I do have thoughts and I'm very much willing to listen to anyone who actually wants to defend this book. And we can do stuff. Apart from that, I'll talk to you tomorrow about something else, and I'll talk to you on Monday about The Dragon Reborn. So, have a great day, maybe have a great weekend, and see you soon. Cheers.